It's not a yes or no, Victoria. I'm hoping one day to be Foreign Secretary and a Chief Diplomat, so it's not a yes or no.
Why not? Why not?
Can I answer the question?
Please.
Very simply. This is a war situation. War is ugly.
Yes.
Very, very sadly, people die.
I come back to Israel, a country that I've come to know very well, this time as Foreign Secretary, after our general election result. And of course, I come back very conscious of the trauma of October the 7th and very conscious of the pain and anguish that many hostage families are experiencing and the nation is experiencing.
A few days ago, I came and talked about the unmasking of Keir Starmer as the new British Prime Minister and how it had taken just 2 days for him to expose himself so spectacularly on the question of Gaza and Israel. You can see that video here. Now, let's talk about his foreign minister, his Foreign Secretary David Lammy. Let me refresh your memory. You remember when Keir Starmer made that horrible statement in the immediate aftermath of 7th of October attacks on LBC, saying, justifying the Israel's siege of Gaza?
I'm very clear. Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
This chap, David Lammy, had appeared on different TV channels and justified the statements made by Keir Starmer.
It's not a yes or no, Victoria. I'm hoping one day to be Foreign Secretary and a Chief Diplomat, so it's not a yes or no.
Why not? Why not?
Can I answer the question?
Please.
Very simply. This is a war situation. War is ugly.
Yes.
Very, very sadly, people die.
Remember, it was the time when Labour's position was against ceasefire or against the brutal killings of Palestinians in Gaza. Now, as the time progressed, as more and more Palestinians continued to be slaughtered by Israel's rogue regime, it had some kind of impact on the Labour Party, which softened its stand in Parliament and called for a ceasefire. That it was many, many weeks after that horrible statement made by Keir Starmer. Now, since then, David Lammy has been talking about the ceasefire without condemning the brutality committed by Israel in Gaza. Mind you, what we are talking about here, we are not talking about the slaughtering of just few hundred people. We are talking about a possible slaughtering of more than 200,000 people, with more than 50% being children and women. And that too in the span of just 10 months. So if you haven't seen, if you don't know what Holocaust looks like, it's unfolding right in front of your eyes. Right in front of your eyes. As I speak, many more babies would have been slaughtered by Israel's rogue army. And who is the sponsor of that rogue army? Who is funding those weapons to kill women and children and babies? Are the countries like USA and the UK, whose foreign secretary is David Lammy. Now, David Lammy is on a visit to Israel and occupied territories of West Bank. Before I come to talk about his public statement as to what he said after meeting the Israeli Prime Minister or the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli President, let's talk about a couple of tweets that his ministry, which is Foreign and Commonwealth Office, has tweeted. And if you don't find that problematic, I think there is something wrong with you. In the first tweet, it posted several photos of David Lammy meeting the members or relatives of those held captive in Gaza by Hamas fighters. That was the first tweet. It's the text of the tweet that is problematic. What does his ministry write in that tweet? That you can read it on your screen. In Israel, Foreign Secretary David Lammy spoke with families whose loved ones were murdered and taken hostage by Hamas. Just pay attention to the word, vocabulary. Murdered, held hostages, taken hostages by Hamas. And the subsequent line, which is also the concluding line, the UK continues to push for the immediate release of all hostages. So there is a statement from the UK that it has taken a side, and the side that it has taken is that it wants immediate release of those hostages. So it's not a neutral tweet, it's a tweet posted in favor of those relatives of those people who are currently held captive by Hamas. Now then it posts a second tweet, and that tweet is of David Lammy's visit to West Bank. This is the West Bank where there is no Hamas. Remember, these terrorists give you the argument that we are launching this strike because Hamas is there and we want to eliminate Hamas. In the West Bank, there is no Hamas, right? And yet, close to 1,000 people, unarmed, innocent, women, babies have been brutally murdered by these terrorists since 7th of October alone. If that was not enough, the Israelis have been forcing Palestinians to bulldoze their own house. Just imagine the level of brutality, that if Israelis are not bulldozing their houses, the houses that they have lived for many, many generations, to add insult to the injury, the Israelis terrorists are forcing those occupants, those Palestinians, to bulldoze their own house, because if they don't do it, the consequences will be even more brutal. So it's that West Bank where David Lammy went. And his ministry shared the photos of his visit to that place with the tweet that reads, "In the West Bank, David Lammy met Palestinian community members where he heard the impact of communities suffering from settler violence." Just imagine the choice of words, communities suffering from settler violence. Settler violence, as if like they come and they just slap you and they go back. They come and just they throw a stone at you and they go back. That's how they're suffering, right? They haven't bothered to choose words that adequately expresses or explains the brutalities of Israeli terrorists in the West Bank. Then it goes on to say, from settler violence and settlement expansion. Settlement expansion, right? So they just extended their house. These Israelis went there and extended their house by a meter or foot. It's not that they have violated the international law by wrongfully occupying the territories that do not belong to them. The next line of the tweet reads, settlements in the West Bank are illegal under international law and harm prospects for a two-state solution. Remember the first tweet where the Foreign Office is taking a clear line in support of Israelis? In this tweet, even though neighborhoods after neighborhoods are being demolished almost every day by Israel's rogue regime, innocent children, babies, women are being slaughtered in the West Bank on every day. And yet, what the Foreign Office under David Lammy is writing is that, okay, what actually it means that it is advising Israelis that, look, if you continue to violate those laws, then it's not good for you either, because it does harm the prospects of two-state solution. So that's what it is saying. That, okay, don't do that because it's not in your interest as well. It's a line that Foreign Office or the State Department in the USA has been taking since the latest round of the conflict started on the 7th of October. Now, David Lammy had a chance to redeem himself for all his sins that he has been committing in his desperation to grab power. He had the chance to redeem himself when he met the war criminal Netanyahu, an Israeli president who, in my view, should also be declared a war criminal purely because of his stand against Gazans. Remember, he was writing all those disgusting messages on those shells meant to be fired on the innocent population of Gaza. So when David Lammy met him and war criminal Netanyahu, he should have made it abundantly clear that what you're doing in the West Bank and in Gaza are in violation of international law, and UK will not support this. But he didn't say that. You watch it.
I come back to Israel, a country that I've come to know very well, this time as Foreign Secretary, after our general election result. And of course, I come back very conscious of the trauma of October the 7th and very conscious of the pain and anguish that many hostage families are experiencing and the nation is experiencing. And I met with UK hostage families just last night, sharing with me their deep concerns, fears for their loved ones. I hope that we see a hostage deal emerge in the coming days, and I am using all diplomatic efforts. Indeed, last week with the G7 nations, and particularly with Tony Blinken, pressing for that hostage deal. And I hope, too, that we see a ceasefire soon, and we bring an alleviation to the suffering and the intolerable loss of life that we're now seeing also in Gaza.
There has been a lot of conversation around his neutrality. A lot of people have accused him of becoming a minister with the help of Israeli lobby. Now, this was a chance for him to come clean, and he failed to do so. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.